You need what?
Band. I wasn't going to get it. Audience.
I'll make an announcement while we're waiting. Tomorrow is Geshe, which is the Big Buddha Day. Everyone 100 million times in Earth. It's celebrating when the Buddha descended from Geshe to heaven to teach in this world. And so we're having puja here at 4 o'clock, but also the Chinese tradition for 20 odd years has been the beginning of the home retreat. And so during our normal 7:30 a.m. puja time tomorrow, we're going to be doing that practice very much. We want to get visualized with that practice. We're hoping also to get it. So we'll go on YouTube. Everybody who wants to do a home retreat. So there's a link to Carol Crossman has the practice for anybody who wants to do it. But if you either want to join us here, and it's going to be a invites to also, this is lovely. We'll be doing some Papaguri yoga. Page 7. For the heart of the Saviour of the 100 ages of Geshe, underneath the cloud, presenting a comfort, extremely white fresh bird, King of Dharma, Christian, lots of blood, please come here together in the sun. In the sky, before me, unaligned, trying to notice the moon, my perfect, your guru smiles with delight. Supreme, feel the merit of my mind of faith, please abide by 100 eons to spread the teaching. Your holy mind has intelligence and understands the full extent of objects in mind. Your holy speech with its excellent explanations is near ornament to those of good fortune. Your holy body is radiant and beautiful with glory renowned. To you who are needing to see here and will not, I prostrate. Please drink water, various flowers, create the incense, lights, and the waters, and so forth. Oceans, clouds, offerings, both actually and mentally energy. I offer to you the green field of merit. Whatever non-virtue of body, speech, and mind, especially those opposite to the three vows that have collected from beginning to time, I confess each and every one with perfect regret for my heart. You strive for much learning and practice in this begin with age and age of freedom, solutions to the by abandoning the eight worldly concerns, daily we sincerely rejoice in your existence. Perfect, pure, holy words from the billowing clouds of wisdom and compassion in the sky of Dharma fire. Please let fall a rain of profoundly accepted Dharma upon the receptor to those who be exactly as they need. May whatever virtue I have collected benefit the teachings and all truths my great religion. And in particular, may it force the essence of perfect of the teachings to shine forever. By the merits of having offered this mandala to Lama Prabhupada and his two sons,
that I may remember and all sentient beings here to me, practice and actualize the teachings of the choice of Untitled, who has the morality of an eminently pure way of life, was courageous in the essential conduct of the sons of the victorious ones, and accomplished the yoga of the two stages of supreme bliss and emptiness. Iram Guratnamandala
by the force of having fervently
requested in this way, holy beings of white light, remitted from the hearts of perfect pure Father and Son, and connected into one, enter my crown. White nectar, the colour of milk flows from the opening of the tube of white light, cleansing all my sicknesses, spirit harms, negative obscurations, and their imprints without exception. My body becomes as pure and clear
as crystal. So over to page 13. On this page over, the five-line Niksema will recite 3 times. Nigme se we te chen chen ne se, nigme kempe mumbo jambo ya, chopo malu shonsen samweta, ya chen kempe sungen sung kapa, lo sanja pe shabla soa te. Nigme se we te chen chen ne se, nigme kempe mumbo jambo ya, chopo malu shonsen samweta, ya chen kempe sungen sung kapa, Lo Sanja Beshabla Sohade, Migme Sewe Techen Chenesi, Jime Kimpe Womo Jampaya, Tuku Malu Chonsen Samweta, Kachen Kimpe Sungen Songkapa, Lo Sanja Beshabla Sohade.
Sangye Chedon Sogi Chonma Chanchu Badu Jami Kyasuchi Jagi Chunyengi Pesonanti Rolam Beche Sangye Chokorasho Sangye Chedon Sogi Chonma Chanchu Badu Jami Kyasuchi Jagi Chunyengi Pesonanti Rolam Beche Sangye Chokorasho Sangye Chedon Sogi Chonama Chanchu Padu Jani Kyasuchi Dagi Chushengi Pesonampi Drola Penche Sangye Drupara Kangi Tudini Tao Tanji Pambi Chere Tangi Chungi Kwadam Kela Chanse Good morning, everyone. long something. Nibble ni G Jones, the Gummy Jones long said.
We've been looking at Lamrim Kappa's presentation, the middling presentation of the sets of the path to enlightenment. Now we go to the point in which Lamrim Kappa explains the way to sustain the meditation session. We've covered a section that explains the way to prepare for the meditation session, and today we're going to begin with the actual meditation session, how to sustain the meditation session. So, as we're following Lamrim Kappa's text, he explains what to do during the actual meditation session. There are 2 points: how to practice meditation in general and how to practice the meditation of this context.
There's Tatambon Chabagio that is Lam Gombandemi giving me knowledge to go to launch Chinas. Kabdi Lam Gombas Jarkose. Thus, this is the launch of Chiles.
So we begin with how to maintain meditation in general, identification of the need for meditation. And it says this meditation on the path. In Geshe breaking stuff, we might need to consider that as a path in this context. Meditation on the path in this context, the context of teachings, the steps of the path of enlightenment. So this meditation on the path like that, which will be explained, is for the sake of rendering the mind suitable to use for virtuous objects just as one wishes.
Teza Tians and Kamdi Dachi Lamgom Suti and Migwa Jang Suti, Migwa Kansin Chini, Suzuliat, and Migwa Karara Chini, teaching Nion Trovadoch, Tolia, Jandem, Jimaris, Ilea, and it Korum Yoris, Korum than Dembiton, Jobina, any Milton Yagidros, semi Yagidros, Yoris, Imadochi, Cabo Susugi, Lola Chadder, Miguaria, Tension, and it Miguajan dead and dig, and it put young Jambule, Tetson, Pentoyo Maris was.
So in identifying the need for meditation, Lamrim Kappa explains then the faults of bad meditation. It says, moreover, if you attend to this and that object of the thought, of this and that object with a thought to take only this number of virtuous objects and in any order whatsoever, nothing will come of it. If you randomly choose objects of meditation and you also change them according to what you feel like, in a sense that sometimes that object appeals to your mind, in another context, something else appeals to your mind. So you tend to go between different objects of meditation. It will not work for you in terms of developing mental stability. Also, the purpose is to choose objects that are suitable for the cultivation of this specific path. So relative to this specific path that we want to develop, we choose certain objects and we focus the mind on those objects in order to engender stages of mental development. Now, if we tend to constantly switch between objects according to what you feel like doing at the moment, this mental progress will not occur.
Lord, Dinama, Pena, Tan Constance in Equal Jama, Ran Children Debater, giving me what Tan did some Korum dishing, Tanya, Dorminations, Ya Dromaris, Tambon in Land Sunsi, she will get Geshe was in the and Mrs. Regular Geshe County, Gunjin Dragon, Droges, Gunjin the pressure.
So in reading through this section, it says, let's read through all of it. Moreover, if you attend to this and that object with a thought to take only this number of virtuous objects and in any order whatsoever, nothing will come of it. And having gone wrong from the beginning, your spiritual practice will continue to be faulty throughout your life, which means that if you're not careful in the way that you approach the cultivation of meditation, choosing specific objects to your meditation, that could have a detrimental effect on how your spiritual progress develops throughout your life.
Pena country ya Kunjin said the country is so is Lavainas. Pena Ganzu Tom and Camber Sendichi. Teni Pig Camber Sendichi Galia, give yourself that and tell you Camber and Camber com Teni Teleteni and Semki and Teleteni Pigita. Yana Dungu Gonita, Sergeant Chiano Soba, the Lucy, Jambajos, the Rumbadi, Koram agent in Drogo as a remoto. Go down with Counter Sandy Shani, and it's Shamba Chedevana. D. Such a Yovachada, and it's such a Yovasnahora. Pento Yovach. The Teleteni and it turned rich and would turn to edge, young Maris Loda.
When it says here, in having gone wrong from the beginning, your spiritual practice will continue to be faulty throughout your life, we can give an example for that. When we begin a meditation practice, we do that with going for refuge, developing bodhicitta. We combine with that, first of all, visualizing the objects of refuge, then meditating on the objects of refuge, and it depends upon that, we give rise to bodhicitta, to the mind of enlightenment in our mind stream. And we do that in conjunction with meditating on the 7 limbs of worship. So this is the meditation format that we choose. But if we then set that aside, in the sense that we do not begin with going for refuge, we completely forgo of the objects of refuge, and then we choose to do something else, what will come out of such meditation in terms of the path that you seek to develop is doubtful.
Tenich never chever, tell a send the tongue yambi, as a wonder. Then a tomer can't make one nangi, charm down, corum never chin. Corum never chin. Tenich never tell a send the tongue yambi, pember trouble tanga, cheddar never chever. Falche never, change the baby, Gango is.
So Lama Tsongkhapa continues in explaining how to maintain a good meditation, having looked at the faults of bad meditation. So therefore, you should first of all, ascertain the number and order of objects to be sustained. Then you should unleash a strong driving force that does not allow thoughts to arise other than in accordance with what has been ascertained. Then you should sustain with mindfulness and vigilance what has been ascertained without addition or omission.
Bena Kevdula Javaina, Kevstus, you Kunjo Sum, Kevikunjo Sum, and it Tambo di Kevtembo, then it Kevu Chukunjo, and it Kev tribute that, and it Gendu Kunjala, two Kevs Jogo, the Jambang agent was, being agent, but the 7 Nibiton, Kadu in a pit, and the Pember Trabuton, that Namia Medania Bigi, Tamja Shajaras, but these sort of things.
So when this section explains the procedure for sustaining your meditation practice, it says that there are certain objects that you use for your meditation practice. They have to be fixed, or you have to fix your objects of meditation. You also need to follow a certain sequence. Like, for example, Geshe says, when you begin your meditation with going for refuge, you go for refuge to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha. In, first of all, considering the Buddha to be the teacher, the actual refuge to be the Dharma, and the Sangha is the companionship that you keep in order to accomplish your refuge. In that sense, the sequence is certain. This is the way that you need to proceed. And when you then in your meditation session, first of all, think of the Buddha as the teacher, the Dhamma is the actual refuge, the Sangha is those that accompany you in accomplishing that refuge. You then think that I should not give them up.
Terepena tenza nganzu tachi ani kyamdro khadru kyamdro gombati negosu ani kyamsu drasa yu number sum ngevares tenza kyamsu drasa susu kyamsu drasa kharchag yobanya ani tisung nan tan dugo horas that tisung mandi bi ani kyawuchi ani tawa devanama kyawuchi goguyo mares ro goguyo mares ta mugung kyawuchi tsedevana ani And
in this context, these objects of refuge are certain to be 3. It is a definite number, 3 objects of refuge. And all our objects of refuge are included within those 3, and additional objects of refuge are not required. So then we need to think about it in this way, because it is said that these 3 objects of refuge are the refuges for those who seek liberation. So if what you seek is liberation, these are your objects of refuge. You don't need to look somewhere else. If this is what you want to attain, the state of liberation, these are your refuges.
Kyabtembo Kandrachilaya, and it's Penata, Chushu, Lama Tengu, and Kyabtembo Benolian, Duko does, Kyabtembo Boymbadi, Dushi Sharp to go does. Then I sing Itachi and a chew, Yaman most chiondi, Churdi, Golom Ninan, Sudivachin, Gobadi, Rangi, Numu Pasha the Cheva, Sebi Chadlea, Gobasha. Did Tobshig Tapchilaya and a chair was Zimtoni. Did Tobshig Tapchilaya Droguna chairs. Did Tobshig Tamayimba. Did Tobshilaya Gorgian Droguna and a chair mine with Samba Childers. Ding any Mushimitoni and Chokonjala Jukoe. Or Dingidos Childers.
And as you go for refuge, you begin with going for refuge to the teacher of refuge, the Buddha. You might be relying upon a spiritual teacher, a Lama, and the attitude that you develop is that they are a teacher of refuge. So you rely on the teacher, then you go for refuge to the Dhamma. And the actual Dhamma refuge refers to true paths and true cessations. True cessations are the cessations of afflictions together with the seeds of the afflictions. These are true cessations, and the means for obtaining or enacting those true cessations are true paths. So if you use a certain method or a way in order to accomplish the cessation of the afflictions, that is regarded as the path. That is regarded as Dhamma. If you use a certain method or way which does not bring about the cessation of the afflictions together with the seeds, that is not regarded as Dhamma.
That chair, because the Namasanji chair laya, Shimju Jingi, and Chada Jingi, and the Kondakandasam Tangi Yasare Sambi, and Kotachi, Yahudos. That show most Jingi by now, and Taran Ladder Chichen, Drogo, what the was.
So if you have the doubt, what is considered to be an actual Dhamma practice, what is not regarded as such, what is actual Dhamma, what is not actual Dhamma, this is the yardstick by which you can assess it. If it contributes to the elimination of afflictions together with the seeds, you can classify it as Dhamma. Otherwise, it is not.
The Niban is Tambu Tempi Payda, the Dirita, and so deep in a Captain Bokosanamidu, and Landur Nating Lama Sanamita, Chipa Chagvastra, and Delayata, and Dirigi Tenchini, 남들 니 신지 말라고 된 신이들이야 된 drogo 연자 아니 된 drogo 연자 다 데야 템비 페요 가리요 요바 아니 데라 마뎀비 님이 가리요 봐 아니 드초 아 드조 신고에 뺏기지 모르겠어 드조 쌈고 그랬어
So when we look at a more specific explanation how to practice meditation of this context, we begin with point A by thinking about the benefits of reliance and the faults of non-reliance. And it says you should first think about the advantages of reliance, about the faults of not reliance. So we spoke about previously, we spoke about relying upon the teacher or relying upon the spiritual friend, the lamas. We spoke about considering what the advantages are of relying upon a spiritual teacher and what are the disadvantages of not doing so. So first of all, you think about that.
These are the tensi lamadi ro captain bobu penatang any tangil to simulate tabakadin captain bobu roas ra captain bobu is an telia and capture go in a dini moose any piggy touching on the middle nashing moose nanzulia and it's labshat young menaya kongi songi and it's so tea tonic and nanzulia labsha ravienza and nanzu tembango chagoras nanzu tembango chagoras. Dinashing given jungle of Chimbo, and it could chase you never in ya. Kongi sombi, and it's Lamrim Chejong sombi, and the song did the ten, Nanzole, Lamrim in the Shinji Malova, Jagienza, and Nanzu and Casota, Captain Bobo, Landur Netamabo, Lama Yashid Chagoras,
So then, in terms of the Lama that you rely upon, well, first of all, we have the original Buddha or the historical Buddha, the teacher of refuge. Or you can also then consider the one that gives you instructions. The one that gives you instructions says for what you need to take up and what you need to cast aside. So the one who gives you the training, after all, the original Buddha, Buddha Shakyamuni, is no longer with us, but there is the one that you receive training from, that you receive instructions from. So you might get specific training or advice that is directed at you, or you listen to teachings and then from them you derive whatever trainings you think that you need to take up. Regardless, the Buddha is no longer with us. And we do still kind of develop the mental attitude that sees the Buddha as the teacher of refuge. But then we also have those that pass on the teachings of the Buddha. Like, for example, Lama Tsongkhapa, that composed the different texts and the traditions of the steps of the path to enlightenment. He composed an extensive presentation, living presentation, a bridge presentation of the steps of the path to enlightenment. So the teachings are still with us, and we rely upon those teachings. So in that sense, you can say that Rinpoche or Lama Tsongkhapa is one of the best spiritual teachers that we rely upon in order to be taught that refuge.
Lama di rangi lama chada majadi sozole rali dos. Is a jomden di song la ya and nyansam consul sujin chin he just juano and jomden di geturis. Jomden di geturas. Then I sing the jungle of song di ya nyansam go sujin chin and chachu which is a will be and jungle of sha. Lunga is in Tessa, the jungle of sha and it's that Geshe said, Kongi song the Jen Devana, and Jang Lamadi, Jangan Chagados, drop.
So there are different teachers, spiritual teachers that you might rely upon. You might regard yourself as a follower of the Buddha, the Bhagavan, Rinpoche, Lama Tsongkhapa, or the great Tibetan yogi, Milarepa. It's completely up to you to decide which teacher you're going to rely upon. It is completely up to you, but then when you rely upon a spiritual teacher, the type of attitude that you need then to adopt is that you're going to rely upon the teacher through thick and thin. In good situations, in bad situations, you're going to be attentive to the teachings and to your best ability to put them into practice.
We get to tell those machine kanji and get to in something and draw the use raw.
Like, for example, Geshe says that he regards himself as a student of Lama Tsongkhapa, as a follower of Lama Tsongkhapa. He's not of the foremost students. He said that he's a little bit naughty or a bit slack, but still, he regards himself as a follower of Lama Tsongkhapa.
The tagas Zawni language that these are Kanjinga, Najiru to get in something, same thing to use. Any to Sozu any and getting Teda, Jangal Mutsungo Niti, and Kaba Kaya Tumulus, Beneta, Garuchi, Twigunding, Nalama, Pechachitan, P. Nanga Sondan. So 다시 제로치 송투서 마치 지용이 아니 지빠지냐 소를 송당에 비 심제 제단에 참모가 지빠지냐지도 아선선 비 미치기에 마 가서다 지금 대반하신도지 딘지 딩인지기스라.
Having said, Geshe said that in saying that is a follower of Lama Tsongkhapa, a student of Lama Tsongkhapa, it's not just saying that. It's not just a matter of speaking. It is a deep heart. Feeling or sensation, heartfelt sensation. He relied upon his own spiritual teacher in the monastery, and also studied the writings of Lama Tsongkhapa. And he sees no difference between the two, in the sense that the one that gave him teachings is his precious teacher in the monastery. He illuminated the vital points from scriptures. And Geshe says that when he looks at the writings of Lama Tsongkhapa, you can see that the way in which he was taught, the way in which he was trained, is exactly in the way that Lama Tsongkhapa elucidated the vital points in his writings. And as such, Geshe says that there is no difference between the teaching that he goes from his teacher and what Lama Tsongkhapa said. So in that sense, Geshe sees himself also as a follower of Lama Tsongkhapa.
The Lamrim Samolaya Nangashim Nambuchu in song there, Nanga showed to Yinza, this song does, Tinsan Manzu in a country to give and Ditoya, Canadian song Shingi. Lama Tempi pay your careers. Lama Tempi pay your careers, Lama Tena, Landur Temba, and Kari Langshare, Kari Torjagi. Chena Jigri Kachi Mandiva Chal Sagi, Lingi Nambaji, Namjudi, Sosugulaya, Keturiorasta, Pay Yashi, Hiravasra.
And as you rely upon a spiritual teacher, you need to do it with a discriminating mind, in a sense that you need to be thinking to yourself that in relying upon a spiritual teacher, I'm going to get instructions with respect to what I need to take up and what I need to cast aside. That's to begin with. And then with respect to those points, I need to be thinking to myself, what are the benefits of taking up certain things and what are the drawbacks of not doing so? What are the benefits in ridding myself of certain ways of behaving? What are the drawbacks of not doing so? This is the type of discriminating wisdom that we need to develop.
The Madame did also there is Sheriff Pigmari, Lengi number Jessing Mari, and did that. These are Madame Teres. That Dini Dambachina, Damgachina, Inchiminchi, Tangoage, Tangoage, Chagos.
The disadvantages of not relying upon a spiritual teacher would be basically to not having the full ability to develop wisdom that can well distinguish between what is right and what is the right thing to do, what is not right thing to do, what is correct and what is incorrect, not being able to fully develop the power of discriminative wisdom.
Then Lamrim can topics can reach tembe period the Martin Nimidi and somebody some but same thing in the assembly Gajo so lit to me she with some dancing. Then that thing sit Lamatilia and it can talk lot Zawni Masho Char Yambi and Tamja Shat Thompson Mount then Tsultrim the thing is so Yunde same Yundi talk to not Javre the Madonna Pigi Lake Chakan Yobichoni and song of Tani can't over somebody same time number change Deva Maki but Gongores, Deva Maki but Gongores.
And then Amundsen Kappa explains how to train in faith by means of thinking about his excellent qualities. So then you repeatedly resolve never to allow your awareness to get lost in conceiving faults in the Guru and think of the excellent qualities like ethics and concentration that you yourself have perceived in him. So you decided to follow a certain spiritual teacher. Faults and qualities will appear to your mind. So here Lamrim Kappa says that you need to train yourself in not focusing on the faults, but to repeatedly turn your mind towards the positive qualities. So you repeatedly resolve never to allow your awareness to get lost in conceiving faults in the Guru and think of the excellent qualities like ethics and the concentration that you yourself have perceived in him. So if you have realized that they have those good qualities, that's the best. Even if you haven't realized that the Lama has those good qualities, it's still more beneficial to again and again turn your mind towards observing good qualities rather than finding faults in them. So it says, think of the excellent qualities of like ethics and concentration that you yourself have perceived in him. Cultivate a faith that is a mind having the aspect of clarity until it arises, which means that we go through the process in relying upon a spiritual teacher in which we train our mind to look at qualities rather than faults. And we do that repeatedly until faith arises in our mind.
Nanzu semdi ngada ngadu semdi ko chada mosongi shawon khede insa ani ji tebi yulya tebaki mashiba turi tinji shu yoro tinza that deep don ani teguchi matu ya di rangi semgi kyer mado chesi yug kyer mayimba opra susi semgi tatsuji ton mado chesi yuge mayba dindi chawe zamala ani rangi sem kyen tachi and di do bayna ani tebaki ngoras yang ko chi sosa do jamba ani chi mamu shudla ya rali yesares.
When Lamrim Kappa gives this advice here that you need to do it repeatedly, you need to repeatedly resolve never to allow that, and to cultivate the faith that is a mind having the aspect of clarity until it arises. Says that you need to stick with this meditation process by which you observe the good qualities. You do not allow your mind to obsess with the faults of that person until faith arises in your mind, because we've recognized that it's not that just from the very beginning, from the very get-go, faith will arise in our mind. After all, Geshe says that at least for him, his mind is still affected by poisonous afflictions, by anger, attachment, and so forth. So it's not that just from the beginning, simply meeting a certain spiritual teacher, faith is likely to arise in your mind. So you need to train them. We need to train in that because often what happens is that when we come across an object that is an object of faith, we approach that with non-faith or with a lack of esteem. So it's not a fault of the object. It is something that you can say that it's the fault of the mind that needs to be trained. So we train in the cultivation of faith, but in order to support that process, we also need to accumulate the collections to purify negativities and obscurations, so that if we develop all those bits in our approach to developing trust or faith in the spiritual teacher, thinking of the qualities, accumulating the collections, purifying negativities and obscurations, faith will arise.
Tene rangla pen tabadan doban gibi kadenam dorde tambata something hintaban kugo magi partu gomus. Adere dai tinza kanji ani yonden sam toni ani deba kiba deba komyata kaden sam toni ani kuba chi ra kyang ta hintaban kugo magi partu kaden sam ani gongo gres.
And then Tsongkhapa says, with respect to training, in the respect that remembers is kindness, when you should consider, in accordance with the above quotations from the Sutra collection, the instances of beneficial kindness that you have received and will still receive, and from the depth of your heart cultivate respect until it arises. So you train in recognizing the good qualities of the Lama, and through that faith arises. You also train in reminding yourself of the kindness of the spiritual teacher, and through that, a sense of respect, of veneration arises in your mind. So you need a combination of these two, right? Faith that arises from remembering the good qualities, and a sense of respect from remembering the kindness.
Tireda, Bena deep hard Benangans, the three shobot chasavans, on the Gamma same Gandela Lamrim, and deep hard the dig Mingnam Chanvangers, Tinam Drogores, Divar Drogores. That Dini, not that the Chixian, something, and Poachi, that's Jekashi, watching us. The deep hard dig Sumbinamaya, Sabi given some which about the no tangible, but Negative Hatugun, many knows the but travel over Chavu say, more part that, give out the Drogores.
So then when we think about it in terms of, for example, what we do here in this session and how it fits within this presentation of meditation, we began this session by doing a recitation of Lama Tsongkhapa Guru Yoga. We also have recited the verse for refuge and bodhicitta. That's the preliminary part. At the end of the session, we will dedicate all the virtue, all the merit that we have created together, and we will dedicate that for a particular purpose. In between comes a section of what we're doing at the moment, right? That's the actual section.
Any relation Ben Gombaina should do Tindinama and Changang Minum Janki Yungros. The Dindi any Cheshava D. That deal is Tanganzuki Lamrim Gomyadi, Taran race. That D any Tuzishila goes Dina Teta with he, Toran, Nado, Chico, Suti, Tun Shilla Gomba Chatis.
So Tsongkhapa says with respect to that, in the section of what to do at the end, beginning with what should actually be done at the end, it says by means of the prayers of good conduct and aspiration in 70 verses, the accumulated virtues should be dedicated with strong aspiration to temporary and ultimate aims. And this is what you do at the end of the session, when you dedicate all the virtue and merit that you have created. So for however long you're going to meditate on a particular topic, you remember what the objects of observation are. With a mind that is relaxed, and it is, as much as you can, you meditate for an hour or two, in going from one point to the next, in as much as you can, developing clarity in your mind with respect to those points. And at the end, you dedicate all the virtue that you have accumulated through doing so. Then, having done that, Lama Tsongkhapa says, with respect to the times and durations of meditation, you should meditate in 4 sessions: at dawn, in the morning, in the afternoon, and in the evening.
당본이 아사로 지진 답이 달라마 예신이 수 두바 있느냐 안직 제걸 이 제걸 비기 민고 장걸 쓰다 라브로스 달 라바 있느냐 기기 수수기 감다 메발에 떼긴떼기래요 뒤즈디 링통 테스 마스바이나 당본 뒤즈링고 쉬우지래 다자원 아니 디니 니마 카시질 베드 셴바 로체니 아니 진냐 마정이 든지 차도 인가 요리스 인자 뒤즈디 And
then Rinpoche gives a practical advice with respect to how to approach your meditation session. It says how to meditate in the beginning. Moreover, if your sessions are long in the beginning, it is easy to fall under the power of laxity and excitement. This is a really vital point. When you begin your meditation session as a beginner, you need to think that your goal is to, over time, sustain your meditation sessions in a good way. If you approach your meditation from the very beginning in making your meditations too long, you'll not be able to keep up with that. And at some point, you'll be completely disenchanted or disinclined to continue with meditation practice. It could be the point where you develop this attitude that is really happy and eager to take up as much as you can when you meet a certain spiritual teacher. So you get instructions from them to tell you what the objects of meditations are. And you might have the impression that right from the very beginning, you'd be able to do everything without exception in the best possible way. So then you will sustain at the beginning meditation sessions that are rather long when you're not used to it. And you'll be able to keep up with that only maybe for a week and 2, and after a couple of weeks, it will make you nauseous. It will make you nauseous or nervous, and you'll decide to completely give it up. So it's best not to sustain long meditation session at the beginning, but to approach that according to your own particular ability to take up, first of all, shorter meditation sessions.
난주 뒤시디 많다게 상상하지. 뒤시디 이마지네 뒤시디 많다게 상상하지. 이게는 뒤 아니 쭉 뒤게 뒤쭉 뒤쭉이가 바보지. 그렇죠? 아니 뒤주 tuntuntun도 치는. 아니 뒤 아니 가지 많은 땅이야. 아니 괜지예요 말이지. 그렇죠? 괜지예요 말이지.
So when you take up such a meditation practice, you begin with shorter meditation sessions, even as far as keeping your meditation session to 5 minutes or 3 minutes. Keep them short at the beginning. Here, Lama Tsongkhapa in his text says, you should meditate in 4 sessions, but you can say that that's maybe the bare minimum. You can, if you keep your meditation session short, 5 minutes, 3 minutes, or what have you, you can do 6, 8, 10, or 12 sessions a day.
Teredean dinamolaya yujina chingudi on the droshasis. Telaku chingula komna lo chukari tun chunga chama chas. Chama chas.
As Lama Tsongkhapa says in his text, moreover, if your sessions are long in the beginning, it is easy to fall under the power of laxity and excitement. Since it is difficult to correct the state of mind once it has become a habit, you should have many short sessions.
Teta dinangata chingwa the gobasedi. Any pigi susu desatelia deni. Any mingwa jang any gyurin javaina, manju lug pagi. Any and need to have a sober, some muscle chaya, mambu yon cigarettes, young, some children shorting, children doing the Namashan, some children shoyatia, and go beyond the doyatia, mambu yon cigarettes, that dingy layer comes on by not, and can lodi. 딱 이만한 신지마다 저 깔라카고 차도 그랬어. 이제 이제 다잖아. 춘중선은 다지 규주 tun동치. 아니 잠깐만 붙여요나. 괜찮지요 그랬어. 담을 거야.
Naman Kappa says here, it is if your sessions are long at the beginning, it is easy to fall under the power of laxity and excitement. Laxity and excitations are two faults that might occur in a meditation. So think of beginning your meditation session. You set into your meditation posture. If you keep your meditation session too long, it is likely that at some point you will start to fall asleep, you'll doze off, or that your mind will become unclear. This is what we call laxity. Or another thing that might occur is that you'll be drawn again and again into objects of desire, objects of the sense faculties, and develop a sense of craving for them. This is what we call excitation. So when you begin your meditation session, if you don't keep at the beginning your meditation session rather shorter, and you start with longer meditation sessions, and then in those meditation sessions, there is a danger of falling either into laxity or excitation. If you develop habits with them, and those two states, laxity and excitations, are supportive of developing habits of these two, you will not be able to correct your mind. You'll not be able to amend your mind. And in that sense, there would be not much spiritual progress that will be accomplished.
The gom dovi tro jegi chenas, trola jegi chena, chema de junin des, and the engine siwi. Shenduna and mer and desert tone, and ben yodred chasiris.
So continuing with this advice, it says, if you cut the session short when there's still a desire to meditate, you will really want to enter meditation in the next time too. They say otherwise, you will be overcome by nausea at the sight of your meditation seat if you keep your meditation too long at the beginning.
Hamada Mandre, me put this, then to Sombana, any tune singles, tune sings another, tune the Tangima, come another Tangana, and come a dune, come a chew, or those ya sing, me what them doing, and it to the tangos.
So then when we go on to the next point, how to maintain the meditation once it has stabilized a bit, and advice on how to avoid exhaustion, it says when it has stabilized a bit, you should prolong the session. So you start with shorter meditation sessions, 3 minutes or 5 minutes or what have you. And once you get some stability in those shorter meditation, then comes a time in which you can extend it a little bit. If you have done 3 minutes meditation, extend it to 5. If you have done 5 minutes meditation, extend it to 7. So when it has stabilized a bit, you should prolong the sessions, maintaining them all free from the faults of being excessively tense or relaxed.
The detam jelayans, Joa Hajan, Tam Chabatan, Share Chabi Gandhi, Chawa Gandhis, he Hajan give me Tanguchi, the bit, any castle. Tiamajiba Yan shoot Kuyambu be Kanchon Ronda told Shaza, dear Maimba, Kanji Tanis Malon said, get it Kadini on a singing, Tanis Malon was told and drove the big kitchen with this.
When Tsongkhapa says maintaining them all free from the faults of being excessively tense or relaxed, It's like in your meditation, you don't want to be too uptight, but also you don't want your mind to be too lax, too, yeah, you can say too relaxed, too calm. In short, we want to maintain a balanced mind that is free from the extremes of being too tight or too relaxed. No, there's marketing.
Yeah, just wondering if there's not a bit of contradiction in these instructions, because if you live an active life with a busy schedule, and you start a meditation session before your mind loses its super activeness, it's probably already 3-4 minutes that are gone.
Okay. So you said that when you live a life that is really busy, you have so many things happening, and you start your meditation session, it takes you some time to wind down, like 3 or 4 minutes it takes for the mind to come down. So if you start a meditation, the point is, I think that you imply is that if you start your meditation with 3 or 4 minutes meditation, then it's just the time that takes you to come down. Is that what you mean?
Yeah, the instruction says that in the beginning you should only do 3 or 4 minutes.
Yeah.
If you don't reach stability, don't try again another time.
Yeah.
You will always keep trying, not succeed.
All right. Dila tambo gongya we tundi tundun shago desen sondwa kama so yama kama nga dila sabatin songdwa tanga so mitse nangyun mitse de chela tsawo shiyo chela tsawo shiyo lega mambo yo senton dantes posto pachagre ta di nima takwa gongya to chewa ina ya sem lolo chala halam kamang su ngago gresa ta gom tuntun de so ina പക്ഷേ gom mochila legi maresa പക്ഷേ di sem lolo chala പക്ഷേ kamasu ngadun de go gresa
len jabor wesla len.
So Geshe kind of your point, and Geshe said that so now he needs to answer this question of doubt, doesn't he? It's putting you on edge.
Kasna kyangi gyunzendi mezid chewatsaw shudris. Ani khasa.
Da lagam boyo re sem de test posto chagre.
Adi ta chewatsaw shud yobada. Lega mam shud kengi sem posto chagre yobadi. Tangwenz tuna tape yagores. Ine di thambo chewatsaw di shanshin di yorda social session digital das.
So you say that we live a busy life, that also contributes to some mental stress, being uptight. So this is the way that we live our life, but is it something that needs to be there naturally? Or do we create those situations in which a mind becomes so excessively busy or excessively tight?
Right. Dia ngechina social session jidosi. Lega mambu dia lega tevi shuji social session jido chagi yobana di shago dasra.
Now, Geshe breaking stuff. When we look at what we do and how our mind reacts to that, we'll often find that creating that busyness in our life, our mind becoming so busy or tight, is something that we allow that to happen. We create that. So once you recognize that it is we that create that kind of stress or busyness and so forth, we can also make a choice of setting some of it aside.
These are Nanta dillu tang tu yo marasba. Ani chewatsaw sedi lega mawu shuji pigilya. So that di pena lega chorchik dos green pena lega kangando hi chik dos chaba ni pe samna maso dos shoji mezena chora project so and di jesu jo ni and di jesu ya kongin gi sembi peshi chadang oso chagores ra chadang oso gi any chik down di any magiba chabe any semba pusto chabe di yungdos tanda dinalola ya kamanga da dinse hizedi ma kubzu ni kamanga ri kubzu ya tsam lago samaros mi any deya jarama gala deya hizedi tyung tela ya zigmares ka gomya migba di yila cheni any ni chinen gotsukchi ra any kamanga sum ni sati zigodas.
When we look at how busy we become in our life, we might find out that we deliberately take up so many different things. We might every day take up 5 different jobs and try to juggle between them without being able to set even a single one of them aside, without being able to give them up. So Geshe says that when you think of having those habits, you'll often find out that they're also related to afflictive states of mind, to anger, attachment, and so forth that might be present in your mind. But that's one thing. But then to go back to your original question about how long it takes the mind to calm down, well, Geshe says that is not counted for the 3 or 5 minutes of meditation. So you sit that down for your meditation session. First of all, make sure that your body and mind are amenable to your meditation practice. So once you let them relax, then the clock starts ticking. Then you start counting 3 minutes or 5 minutes and so forth.
But then again, it's the reality that we create all this mind. But I think it's society also that helps us to create the busy mind and how to escape from it.
Yeah. So you said that in reality we are creating that busy mind, but also the society conditions us for that busy mind. So how can we escape that? 근데 치라차고 나서나 소열에서 이네 취소된다고 지금 그래서 롬바 취소된다고 지금 되어 있나요? 미참마 컴시다가는 차기로 미참마 컴시다가는 저에는 네 컴시디 르탄 칼레카버레스 르 칼레 직당 보고레스
다 제스다 le temps c'est dit puis le temps là gegen 통고das là que bien de yonding mudi ani chawa del ya ju da manchu ni ton so so ya 당한 또 디기 되면서 대wan 되면서 디낭게 샘래 시디 되면서 디 간이 용도도 디 담부다지 친구가 그랬어 아니 딘지 통와이나 아니 그 chawa 총자지 먼저 남규를 담 무슨 차와지 나야 러당 투게지 디 자시야 담 연구하세요 간서 좀 되는 담봉 뭐저 상마지고 그 다지 갸비스를 총 아니 갸시 나타는 제바 아니 지 소소라 당원 이르거들라 참 러당 저해디 먼저를 람딘지로 왔어라.
Well, to decide to give up some things, although our society conditions us to do that, expects us to do that, is something that happens if you make a conscious choice that arises upon having investigated your situation. So you need to turn inwardly and ask yourself, what's the point or what's the benefit of living like that? Do I get a benefit or profit from reducing the degree of busyness that I have? What are the faults and what are the benefits in continuing in such a way? So we recognize that, first of all, our primary goal is to develop happiness and well-being and to avoid suffering or being unwell. This is where we begin. So then when we think that this is my goal, to develop a greater degree of happiness and well-being, then how is my lifestyle contributing to that? What are the benefits in keeping it like that? What are the drawbacks in keeping it like that? What can I do in order to make it better? What doesn't work for me? And one thing that we can also keep in mind is the example that was laid out by the Buddha Shakyamuni, that was born into a life of luxury, being a prince in a royal court, and yet decided to give up all the benefits and the comforts of living in a royal court, renounced his family, all the pleasures or comforts in the royal court, and set out to achieve his own spiritual quest. So this is for us, Geshe feels, is indicative or symbolic of making a conscious choice, looking at one's current style of living, mental state of, how does your mental state react to that? And then thinking of, can it work out or can it not work out? Are there problems or issues with that way of living? And how can I change that way of living?
Then again, you can see from the perspective of, do I do the meditation for myself? Or whatever choices I make with regards to meditation and life, do I take these choices in function of other people as well?
그런 이네들이 공개와 이나로와 소소소소 찍고 돌아서는 단계를 배우나 소소 찍고 제도 공개를 시험이나 신든 내가 채워 있는 한데 철학 사고인데 자기를 대한 선뜻한 거로
단다 먼저 지단기 지워차오 그는 라마중가버 있나 지워차오 쉬우여서로 가서 주주 시시시 빠르리야 튜 야차자다마 장거도스 니 고야기 주주야고도 칼라사야기 주주도 흘르면 따디 지단지 지워차오 쉬우러스
Yeah, I guess that reckons that when you think of how you become busy, for example, with working on meditation or for the sake of others, think of Lama Tsongkhapa. Lama Tsongkhapa himself was very busy, having to sustain 4 meditation sessions a day, having to also make sure that there is enough time for sleep. Maybe one will not get enough time for sleep, or not enough time for having food, preparing food, and so forth.
이내야 제와 가시기 먼저 샘바디 부수타고 소르스 야 제와 차고 가시기 샘발이야 가와이키야지
제와야만 제라
제와차고 제와차고 찌기 샘 가야지인 것을스 제와차고 초찌기 샘이야 마기고요 남자지야 부수타고 쳐야지 이용고였어스 다디 야시야탄다.
So yeah, we live a busy life, but we can also look at how those things that make the mind busy also play a different role in our state of mind. You become very busy in certain areas and it doesn't make you happy. It doesn't make your mind happy and well. Whereas you can keep a really busy lifestyle with some things and it also enriches your mind. It makes your mind happy. So you also need to look at those areas. You might find yourself busy. Is it making you happy? You might find yourself busy and it is making you happy.
아니 디리다 디자다 공자야디 타르투나 란데 레도스 간스나 아니 공자야기 고바 타르투가디 민 코라네 로종 생도스 소수 로종이치.
One of our final goals in meditation is to accomplish our own welfare. We speak about our own welfare, for example, when we speak of lojong, the tradition of training the mind, mental transformation.
그래서 아니 로종야기 탑야슈디 로디 균 장고라스 로이 균 조디다 되게 장 제번즈바 아니 신 야와토와라 소바 아니 당난진세다 아니 대차 셰반 이무로 소비 샘 균디 장고라스 샘 균디 장야야 아니 이 탑디야 샘지가 된 장고를 모두 시 오버지기 난기 샘 정야디 자인 문도 아스라.
So when we use this term lojong in Tibetan, which is English is translated in as mind transformation or training one's mind, the word lojong can also be translated as mental purification. That's the second meaning of jong, right? So lo, jong can means to train, but it can also mean to purify. So when we take lojong as mental purification, what we purify are faults from that are in our mind. So we purify our mind from faults. And what are those faults? The faults of cherishing ourselves and disregarding others, having a lesser degree or lower degree of an other cherishing attitude. The faults of grasping at the self, the faults of anger, attachment, and so forth. All of these need to be purified. And the purification depends upon methods that we take up in purifying the mind, and keeping in mind that this purification will work through using the mind rather than having external things or external technologies that we can use in order to purify the mind. This purification will happen through the mind and not extraneous to the mind.
Lo di jongshek tabgi lo di pena rang jinzi jen ya du samlo di pena chadang chori yongya genza zu ro di ro rangjin mancham ya che genza zu gi and di lo shen pena shen jinzi se shen jinzi tattu na ninji da chambala soba ro masu sunje ta che sama lo Chigirgimbadi Munzin Tungi, Loti Togi, and some of the Deva Deva, the Dungaman Deva Chigir, Sula Devachon, Govi, Sula Dungamena, and the Jiri of the Dij Sound Town, and Ranchigo, Chevazin, Shenya to the Sound Pigi, Sem to Dignity, Sama Sovia Saras.
We do have an attitude that cherishes ourselves and disregards the welfare of others. We are affected by the partiality of anger and attachment. We cherish ourselves and we ignore or neglect other living beings. And because of that, we do not get along well with those around us. The way to purify that is through developing an attitude of cherishing others. So developing loving kindness and compassion, developing equanimity or impartiality that recognizes that all of us are the same in wanting happiness and wishing to avoid suffering. All of us have that basic or natural wish to be happy. So when you develop equanimity, then you recognize that if someone experiences happiness and they're free from suffering, you find that agreeable. You think that that's great, that's correct, that's all right. Which means that we need then, in developing loving kindness and compassion and equanimity, to discard this self-centered or self-cherishing attitude, to develop an attitude of cherishing others, which is based upon equanimity. But often we don't think about it like that. First and foremost, we think only of ourselves.
Dinamita, Miguado Yangi Mana, Ben Inji Polaya, and Tambo Sunja Tamji, Rita, Daniel said, and Subirda, Kato, Chigura, Chikela, so Dinji, and Chiguara Slegoma, Sangong, so deep, and Deva Devata, Dungam Mundeva, Yimba, someone Daniel said, Hitolia, someone's done Sudus. Deva Mending is Sudu, Dungan Ding is Sudu, some of the Kaya Meva, some of the Deva Dugi of a Dungan Dugi Mevadi, and Samlea, see which charges us. Tinjiri, we would then, and Kamakashi, Kamakashi, the Denita, Deva Dugi of a Jaja Jadamadi, and Samlea, Kokamani Sunde, or those, we were giant of Jesus, right?
So then in terms of taking that into your meditation session, if you decide, for example, to meditate on compassion, then you would first, as in your development of compassion, you will first recognize the equality between yourself and others. Now, when we think of the equality between ourselves and others, it's not that we think that all of us are the same in terms of physical attributes, our physical proportions, skin complexions, and so forth. Of course, we are different to each other in that sense. But when we meditate on the sameness of all of us, we meditate on the sameness in terms of all of us wishing for happiness and not wanting to experience suffering. So we then take it on into our meditation in spending maybe 2 or 3 or 4 minutes in thinking, first of all, of equanimity, thinking that all beings around us to begin with are seeking happiness. Can we find someone that does not do that? Can we think of someone that has a different degree of wish for happiness? See, through that meditation, when you start to inquire into sentient beings seeking of happiness, you come at some point to see that all of us are working on the same principle motivation, on the basis of the same principle motivation of seeking happiness. So you do that for a couple of minutes, 2 or 3 minutes. And then you also think that sentient beings want to avoid suffering. You again spend a couple of minutes on that. And then you wish them to be free from suffering. So that is just one example of how you keep a short meditation session. It's just in the actual meditation session, spending some time, a few minutes in thinking through those points.
And if
you do that, Geshe reckons that you will manage to get your head around how to develop compassion, that compassion is a suitable state of mind.
any sometime kamakashi shuda any ngadi Kansas City chagros any ngala tuja jilapso and ngala yabuchi the sounds of that and ngechi chain that chingum the sounds of ngadi tolia sound kamakashi shugo was and ngadi kandaji yeme tolia.
We also mentioned anger, attachment, grasping at a self. The way to eliminate these states of mind is through the development of wisdom that realizes selflessness. So we can also implement that in our approach to meditation. So Mark, you said that we live a busy, very busy lifestyle. So when you think that it's hard to do it, to meditate on those issues because I am busy, well, think about who is the I. When you have that strong sense of I'm busy, then harness that into your meditation. Where is the I? Try to pin it down precisely. Where is it? For example, where is the sense of I that feels so offended when we hear harsh speech? Or when someone says something good about us, and we also have that strong sense of I that arises in our mind, where is it? Can I find it? Can it be pinned down? Does it exist? Does it not exist?
Pigi Kambarimudi Nareve, Subuchemudi Nareve, and Modaya would not show much cheating, so what the Nareve, but this sounds down and Nadi Zawin, Nadi Kurang, you didn't you have a chick. So we have a certain
apprehension of ourselves, and we hold on to that apprehension as if it exists in the way that it appears. So, for example, you might think that I'm a tall person, I have long legs, or no, I have a big body. So, can we find that person? Can we precisely pin it down in the way that the mind apprehends it, the I of me? And when we think of the things that belong to me, like my car, my nice car, the boot is sometimes too small. I cannot fit in things, too many things within my boot. So we have that, again, strong sense of I, of self that arises in our mind when we think of those issues. So can we find this I to exist in a way that the mind apprehends it? So this is the way in which we might think that we have a busy life, and we have also a sense of apprehension of ourselves. When we think of a busy life, we can use that in order to meditate on looking at where the I exists in the way it appears to the mind.
nam gyöndeng gi ngal ching de su ngal ching ding ma sambi nga pi do do to ji yoba cha de di and chega do no zao yin yi gi me ba chi o disung go ras ra.
And since we've mentioned selflessness is a view that is unique to the Buddhist tradition. So we have different religions, different spiritual traditions that exist in the world, and we can differentiate between them in terms of the philosophical views. The philosophical view that is unique to the Buddhist tradition is the philosophical view of selflessness, the absence of the self. Now, it's not that we say that the self does not exist at all, because we know based upon a personal experience that we exist. We think of ourselves, I exist. Sometimes I experience pain. At other times I experience pleasure. Sometimes I experience suffering. At other times I experience happiness. So we know that I exist based upon a personal experience. But does not exist, and this is what we find out through our meditation in selflessness, is that there's a way of reifying that sense of self, making it concrete, like a lump of something. And that reified sense of self, that doesn't exist. So Alan also is asked in the chat box, in the text on dedication at the end of the 7 limbs, it says dedication multiplies and makes it inexhaustible. Inexhaustible, I assume, because dedicated to enlightenment. Could Geshe please explain how dedication multiplies? Thank you. Dila not so Yana dun dollar Geshe dwa. Yana dun di tamadi no mo gyawarwa. Mo gyawa ina dila karulagi wasna pewa seba meba so res lagirwa. 세상 세번 매버세 디 할람 창조기 고판 퇴체 동화 겨와이나 아니 서버 매버 패셔 세번 매버 차게 됐어.
그래.
근데 패와세 디 패와차 김승 카레이나스
망만도 거라스.
그래서 마로 저디 김승 카레이나스.
가스나 뭐 디토기. 그나 먼저 가지 빼셔서디 추티바치 비 장주 추는 제바이나 상만의 캡로야지. This is yes.
Well, when we dedicate our virtue, it says that it becomes inexhaustible, but also a virtue multiplies. So that it multiplies is, Anand said, you can say that it is because it is dedicated to enlightenment. What is the reason for saying that it multiplies? Well, Geshe says that we can use the analogy that we used in the previous session and the one before for speaking of how dedication of virtue works. It is just like, you could say that a drop of water, a glass of water that is poured into the ocean. In that sense, you can say that if it is poured into the ocean, it also mixed up with the ocean, it pervades it everywhere. Since it kind of pervades it everywhere, it becomes more and more, it multiplies.
근데 성당도 지금 두스탄도 지고서요. 그러나 다 마세바 대바이나 아니 소소 그는 추드지 니마치 로직 데비릴이야. 아니 까차까차니 그 링기 개와지 레데고라스. 만드로그라스라.
Or another way of thinking about it is, if we think about it in terms of being inexhaustible, then when we think of the passage of time within the passing of one day, 1 hour, 1 minute, 1 second, and so forth, you can say that it multiplies in terms of the passage of time. In every passing moment, it is there. So thank you. Let's leave it here now.
Can I just ask a slightly quick question?
Yeah.
So tomorrow is said to be a big multiplying day, 100 million times a minute. So how does it work on those days when it multiplies even more on those days?
Sanin habab duchen ro. Habab duchen kapsulayan di dila yamana duchen kapsulayan pewasya di bunta de chi gyawa pekire si lagirwa. Di kande chi.
티 니하모고스. 직바도 니기 개와 펠실라나 개와 이 뒤체 그런 뒤 다가랑라야 마무쇼지 가는 배경에 니로 시라 차이무스.
So I'm just going to repeat Chuka's question for the people at home. The question was, tomorrow is Labab Duchin, a special day, and it is said that during special days, the virtue that we accumulate is multiplies like a billion times, a million times, 100,000s of times. So how does it happen? Geshe says that he doesn't know himself. He has heard those statements before, but in terms of what's the rationale behind that, what's the reason that supports that, Geshe doesn't know or doesn't understand why he's stating like that. Please don't get annoyed with Geshe for saying that. Don't throw your packaging.
지금 이 남기디 상당이었으라. 먼저 장파르세디 디하고 오면서 상기 처리야 뭐제 좀 되게 처리야. 균쟁이 리퍼치기나 베니지오다스. 이제를 라고도다스. 근데 이나야 아니 페이치에요세디 뱅 소스템들 페이치에요세디 샘을 슝고도스.
So jokes aside, Geshe says that no, he really doesn't know why it is stated that virtue multiplies. It is stated like that, it multiplies a few times more. So not knowing why it is stated like that, Geshe says that he can still think of reasons why it would be more beneficial. You will get a greater benefit in doing it in those days.
Kasna di nimu di 상기다 아니 간데마 아니 잠블링이야 페비니 못 차고라스 믹스 투기 물론 아니 잠블링 밀이야 투기 물론 슈난 뒤즈지 기견자 한간주 디 니모 데다답디니 아니 개주 제바이나 뒤 견den기 계란 개주 이 통규 제발이 디 니모 개주 제바디 느바치야요스 싱기 톨레테 Sanji in Tsultrim, never chair yours Labana, the yon charges.
So then in trying to think about it, Geshe says that, for example, tomorrow is a day that we call Duchen, or the descent from Tushita heaven, in which the Buddha came down to this world, in a way that corresponded to the aspirations and the prayers of sentient beings, to benefit sentient beings. So then if we also do a certain spiritual practice in days like that, we do that in relation to a special object. So sometimes when you look at an explanation of virtues that, or certain actions that are being created and what determines the weight of those actions, sometimes we speak of how an action becomes heavier or greater in depends upon the objects of the action. Like for example, here, if you do an action in relation to the Buddha, you can think that therefore the action carries a greater weight.
Sing to the Dimbi and talk sages. Sing to the Dimbi talk said, Changi service. In the any Namgu gave Tongur Chibi, any pay towards give Tongur Chagres, give Tongur Chibi, pay towards Lavan Yasjatamba, and some sugar's right.
That means that it occurs due to the power of the object, due to the strength of the object. So if you think about it like that, and Geshe reckons that in terms of virtues that are being created, you can think about it in terms of becoming more powerful or becoming more beneficial. In that sense, then you can link it up with saying that you have multiplication of thousands of virtues, if you do it in this stage, just for the virtue of them becoming more powerful.
Thank you.
Thank you. So I'll put the dedication prayers on the screen. Do we have food in the cafe today?
Food in the cafe, is holding it.
We have bisones at the cafe. All right.
Yeah, so that was another part of the announcement. So just, Geshe will be joining, Sangha will be joining down in the cafe for lunch. And so before lunch, we'll want to hang out with Geshe, come along. And then at 1:30, His Holiness is teaching and we're showing on the screen here. If you participate in any of that. And then also Monday, you might do the non-life preacher. I don't remember the beginning. No. Non-life preacher on Monday for